So here we go. Solving algebraic equations. What the heck do those letters mean? Again, they're just numbers. And if you treat them like numbers, it'll be nice and easy. So I'm going to show you this in a couple different ways. So you'll see I have pairs of equations on the other side of the board. We're going to do two different methods that I'll explain as I get to them. So the goal here when we're trying to do these questions is solve for x. We want to know what x or w is. Whatever that missing letter is, we want to know what number it actually represents. And if you think back to our examples we did earlier with area, where we had area equals length times width, and we said, well, L and W were, say, 5 and 4. Then we did 5 times 4 is A. The difference in these situations is that we got to rearrange the equation to get the x by itself. So let's do that. With opposite operations, what we do is look at what type of math we're doing and then perform the opposite of that on the other side of the equal sign. So the equal sign is like this barrier that switches signs. So in our first example here, we have 3 plus x equals 4. Now some of you are probably screaming right away, yeah, it's 1, it's easy. And again, the only reason why we're using small numbers in that is because they're easy to work with. But follow the process, even if you can quickly guess the answer, follow the process as makes it a little bit easier as we get to more complex problems. Also write these out the same way that I do with these equal signs lined up, because it'll be important to help get a mental picture and it work better in your head. So in this case here, opposite operations, we are adding a positive 3 to the positive x. So in this case here, positive 3 plus x. So we're going to move that 3 over to the other side of the equal sign. So I've highlighted it here, and you should do the same. And then I'm going to have that positive x. I don't need to put a positive sign anymore because it's not being added on to anything. Equals 4. And now positive 3, that plus 3 that we were adding on, is now going to become a minus 3. We're doing the opposite operation. We were adding the 3 here, so now on the other side we need to subtract it. That's the opposite operation. And we have x equals 4 minus 3, which is 1. Now, let's look at another example with that, and then we'll do the do and do method. So here we have w plus 5 equals negative 7. So we're adding 5 to w. So I'm going to highlight that. We're adding 5 to w. I'm going to rearrange it by moving the 5 over. So I'm rewriting everything that I didn't circle. And now plus 5, when it moves to the opposite side, it does the opposite operation. It's the opposite of adding is subtracting. So I have w equals negative 7 minus 5. And so it's minus 7 out. It's getting 5 degrees colder. And it's going to be minus 12 out. And so with the opposite operations, you're selecting what operation you're doing and then moving it to the other side and doing the opposite. Now, very similar, but just a slightly different procedure is the do-undo method. And so what we do is we look at x. What's the thing we're doing to x? We start with x. Start with x. Then we add it to 3. So then we add 3. So we start with x, we add 3, and we get 4 as a result. We started with x, we added 3, and we got 4. So that's the do. And then to undo that, we do everything in reverse. So instead of getting 4, we start with 4. And then we subtract 3. The opposite of everything. So we subtract 3. So we have 4 minus 3. and then we will get x. And actually 4 minus 3 is 1. And we get x, so x equals 1. So when we're doing the do-undo, we go through starting with the variable, in this case the x, and then we figure out what's the first thing we do to it. And then if there's multiple pieces, we go through that until we get to that equal sign. And then we reverse everything. Start with 4, subtract 3, get x. So another example here, we always start with the variable. So we start with w, we add 5, and we get -7. So that's our do. So to undo that, we start with -7, we subtract 5, so that's -7 minus 5, which is -12. And then we get w, which is then the remaining value. And this will make a little more sense when we get to multi-step equations for some of you. Well, those are two different methods. Your choice as to which one works for you. Now, in the next video, I'll do some examples with subtraction, and then we'll do some multiplication and division.